it's Risa and Kevin from Hudson Valley Vintage. And tonight, I'm gonna sand down this whole table with the use of my little handy, what do you call this? An orbital sander. Is that an orbital sander?
Yep.
So I've never done this before, and we're actually doing this piece for a customer to prepare it for stain. We're staining the top a dark brown. It's actually called Java from General Finishes. It's probably their most popular color. And then we're gonna be painting the rest of it, the legs and the base and everything. So that's what we're doing tonight. We've had lots and lots of requests for this type of a project. Everybody wants to know, how do you sand the top of a piece down for wood? As I said, I have never done this before, so you guys are gonna learn with me. So honey, you said this is a sander.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have, now why is the sandpaper round? So it can go on the thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It fits right in the bottom. No glue, no nothing. It's like it's a new style hook and loop. So you just touch it and it sticks right on. It's great.
Okay.
It's great.
So we didn't have anything on April Fool's Day, but this is an April Fool's because I am not sanding this table down. I would never do a customer's piece for my first sanding down. So
you had me fooled. I thought you were really going to do it.
I know. And I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, so I'm supposed to do it.
So let's switch.
Oh, I thought she was going to do it. A couple of things we're going to do. This is, and if you want to lift the camera up so they can see the top of this. So this is an old refractory table. We've actually been using this table, believe it or not. You can see a little bit of paint on it. For workshops going back.
For 6 years.
Yeah, for 6 years. So it's like superb.
Somebody came in and wanted to buy it.
The table weighs, oh my God, it weighs a couple hundred pounds. These old style tables, if you ever see one, they're really kind of cool. They actually lift up, goes down, and the bottom goes up, which is really kind of cool.
So how old do you think this table is?
So this is probably her, early 1900s, turn of the century. Could be a little after that. Could be all the way up to the 20s. I'd have to look and see, but the legs
it's got.
are huge.
I'll show you the.
So the
it's got really
base of it,
beautiful
that's the classic
detail.
refractory side, super sturdy, and really kind of cool. So this is the regular size. We've talked a lot about veneers and laminates. One would think, if you're looking at this table, my gosh, this is solid wood.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to give you a pointer. So you look at a piece of furniture like this, and when you see, so the whole center of this table, so we've got the edges here, and you can see this is like a picture frame, so it's cut just 45-degree angles, and so the outer edge,
just point to it.
Right here.
See that angle right there?
So that,
yeah,
that
just like
so it's done
a picture frame.
The outer 4 pieces. Forget about the 2 leaves right now because they're done exactly the same way. But the main part of the table has an outer rim, 4 or 5 inch wide. But then if you look at the center, the grain is continuous from one side to the other. And when is the last time you've ever seen a tree that big, right? Like that would be a board that would be, you need like a 4 foot wide tree and the piece from
So
it.
what does that mean? That all
this is veneer.
That all,
the top
does that mean all tabletops are veneer?
That when you see a continuous grain pattern all the way across, that's a dead giveaway that this is a really nice veneer job that they made it look one piece. Now sometimes veneers are bookmarked like you showed last week on your dresser drawers. You've got a pattern built into it. The other thing, so these outer boards, these are basically full thickness wood. Right?
Solid.
These are solid. These are solid wood with a little bit of a cut in the edge. The center is also solid wood and it's all oak, but on the surface is this little bitty. Here it is right here. Can you see that? There's a little bit of veneer lifting here. It's about, I don't know, 32nd of an inch.
All right, so
it's heavier here than on most pieces.
If this is a veneer, I know everybody's thinking this right now. If this is a veneer, how can we sand it down and stain it?
Oh, because we're only going to sand through the bad surface. You can look at this. The old not polyurethane, but the old shellac is gone. In 3/4 of this surface, there are some white marks here.
All right, what if we go too far down?
Oh, to sand all the way through this full thickness. The only way you'd be able to do that would be if you used like a 60 grit, like a really, remember, lower number is the more coarse grain in the paper. What's on here is actually feels pretty coarse.
Carefully.
Yeah. So I'll show you that. You won't leave the sander. You're never going to leave the sander. This is an orbital sander. It spins around and it goes in kind of an oblong thing, so it vibrates a lot, which is cool. But you don't leave the sander in one spot. We're going to, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but you move it around. You're always moving it around, and you're looking while you're moving it around. And I'm going to say all this now because once I'm doing this, it's going to be noisy.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard. So, and I don't want to do the whole table because nobody wants to watch grass grow. Nobody wants to watch me sand the whole table. So I'm looking at it and I'm feeling it, and it's kind of rough, and there are lighter areas. There are water stains here. Now you're going to try to stain this. So we do want to get this to a point of where it's got a nice clean surface so the stain will look even. I have not TSP'd this yet. It doesn't make any sense to do that right now.
Right.
I want to clean off, because if I end up, let's be honest, if I sand this whole surface off and it really looks all nice and I've gotten down to the native wood, I don't have to clean it. I've sanded off everything.
Now, how are you going to repair that?
This right here?
The veneer. And are you going to do that now?
I'm going to do that now.
Oh, we got to double.
I'm going to do that. So
2 for 1, guys.
I'm going to do that first, and then I'm going to kind of mark myself off with tape because I'm not going to sand over where I just glued it. I'm going to let that set. This whole top, there's a little bit of veneer missing here. Customer doesn't mind that. That actually gives it some great look to it. If you were painting this, if you were painting the top and you really wanted this fixed, then what you've discovered is by
embossing medium.
filling this with embossing medium and sanding that down would be a perfect solution.
But not for stain.
But not for stain. But not for stain. So simple. So to fix a veneer like this, there's any number of different things. So you can see it. It's moving. It's wiggling, and it wiggles down to about here. If you've got end dust and pledge on this, that is not going to really melt and go down in. If you have furniture or butcher's wax, or other furniture wax, the furniture wax that you use all the time. If you have that on here, you'd want to take that off, but TSP is not going to take that off. That comes off with mineral spirits.
Okay.
So if I'm looking at this, and I happen to know this table because we've had it for years, there's no wax left on this table at all.
Okay.
So I'm pretty comfortable that there's nothing that's going to melt. If I had just picked this up, I might take a rag and wipe it down with a damp or a wet rag and look and see if I get like really heavy beading up. If I get really heavy beading up in one area, take the back of my fingernail and rub it through, and if I see a mark in it, well, that might be a mark through wax. Then I take a cloth with some mineral spirits and I can wipe the whole top of this thing right down, and that will take away that will dissolve any of the wax that's on this. So I put a little bit of glue. I'm using, this is Gorilla wood glue. You can use Elmer's wood glue, any kind of a wood glue. Don't use the regular
glue.
The regular, like Elmer's, kids' school glue or whatever. Okay. So I'm using a piece of cardboard because I kind of like to work off of that. Any implements you can use. I like to use like kind of the wide edge razor blade because that's what I put the glue on. It's super thin, very rigid, and I can put glue on both sides of it. And I'll show you how I work the glue.
Okay.
How I work the glue in. I've got a couple of sticks here, something else because I want to be able to hold it up so that I can get down underneath of it, and because I want to see how far in the wood is lifted so that I can get the glue all the way in. It's not absolutely totally critical that it's lifted all the way into here, that you get glue all the way into there. Unless it's really bubbled up.
Okay.
What you're really trying to do is you're really trying to get glue in and cement all the edges down. So, what I will now do is to see where I'm at.
Is it loose under there too?
This whole corner has
Oh,
come
okay.
up. So popsicle sticks are great. If you've got, see it's okay here, so it's not lifted here, which is fine. And I'm not going to pull it up. There's no need to pull it up. I've got a little hook too if I want to see how far down it is. It's not so bad. So like right here to right here, this is still attached, which is fine. All right, so what do I do with my so what I will do, and I usually just take this and kind of like, I like to get both sides of it. And you kind of work your way in. And this is where I use the popsicle stick to kind of like leverage it up so that I can work my way through it. Again, I'm really just trying to get the glue as far in as I can. Don't worry about making a mess, I'm gonna clean that up. So what I'm really doing is I'm kind of painting the glue on the inside of this. If you get it really, really, really good on one side, you don't have to worry about getting top and bottom. You're gonna see in a minute when I squish this down, because I'm finding it's easier for me to get on the top because I'm lifting the top up and the bottom is on the table. And when I squish this down, what you're gonna see is the excess glue is gonna squeeze out, and you gotta clean that up when you're done with it. But that's okay. Now, one thing you can do, you see the mess I've made along the edge here?
Yes, I do.
One thing you could do if you wanted to prevent that, you could put masking tape down, and so you lift up the masking tape and the glue's gone and you don't have to clean it up. I just didn't think of that until now.
So if you got the glue on and you know it dried up, how would you get it off?
Well, then that's a problem. You'd probably end up using a razor blade and chiseling it off. Yeah. And that's good. So that whole corner will all be set up. When it's set, I'll sand that down too. And we'll be all set.
Okay. Okay, part one finished.
Part one finished. It wasn't that difficult. It really isn't. So if you've got...
So really the secret is getting something thin enough to get in there with the glue.
That's why I like the razor blade. But again, if you've got an old butter knife, a thin butter knife or kitchen knife, don't get the real fat ones, but if you've got a flat bladed, those are great too. You might even take it and bend it a little bit so you can get a little leverage and get inside. Those work fine too. Those work nice. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to start, I've got 150 and I've got 220. I'm going to start really light with the 220 and see if it works. I don't know if it's going to, but I can go down to 150 if I need to.
How do you change it? You just...
This is just, so it's a hook and, it's a little hook and loop. It's like that old 3M stuff, you just...
Oh, okay. It's like, it's almost like Velcro.
You can take this, it is Velcro. It's like a hook and loop is Velcro, yeah. So, and you just peel the edge off when it's done. So when you're using...
they're all like that?
Most of them now are like this. So when you're using the sandpaper, as you're sanding along, you'll notice that it will take up the varnish or the shellac, and it can get stuck on the bottom of the sandpaper, and you'll find like little chunks. And the more you build up chunks on here, then the sandpaper's not touching it anymore. So if you find that as
well, maybe you'll show us if that...
As you're sanding along, I'm not pushing hard on this. You don't need to. This weighs about 1.5 pounds. You just kind of let this...
So you don't want to apply pressure.
Let this do the work. If you need to... Now, and I'm really kind of running it flat. I'm really letting it lay flat. But as I get to a certain area, like let's say where this paint is sitting on here, and I really want to get that off, if I'm going over it and it's not coming up, I can tilt this up just a little bit, and then what I'm doing is I'm getting the edge. And as I move across, when you do it, you'll see the edge of any sander will take off more.
Okay.
So that's where you want to be careful. So I'm getting down through, I've got some darker areas. So I'm going to really try to get the vast majority of this that lighter color. The reason I'm going to try to do that is because, and this is the same color here, it works, then your stain is going to take evenly. If I left this lighter and left this darker, there's a little bit of shellac still left on here, and the stain is not going to take to this. It's going to absorb into here. The odds are this, while this is darker now and this is lighter, this will become darker because it will absorb more stain. This will not absorb the stain, so it's not going to work as much. So it's all by sight because you can see it. You can see it removing.
So what I notice is that it's starting to look similar to, it's starting to look similar.
As you're sanding this, you're watching the darker turn light, and so, what Julie's asking, you're moving not even millimeters, you're moving thousandths of an inch away. So it's still flat. As I look at it, so this area is still a little darker. This can go a little more. I'm feeling it's super smooth. So the nice thing about the 220, it'll go super smooth. If this was really a mess, you might do it with you might hit it with I have 150. 150 would take this off really quickly, and I could do that. So here's the sanding.
Now, are you using the 220 because it's a veneer? And
No.
Okay.
I'm just kind of starting easy rather than like hitting this. If I hit this with the 150, it would go off even quicker.
Okay.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So here's a sanding block. This is a coarse one. And there it is on the... It takes off the shellac really quickly. Like really quickly.
So you really could do this by hand if you don't have a sander.
You're gonna sand for a little while to get the reason we've got like 30 glass spots on here. So I really need to get down through there to get this.
So would you always recommend starting with 220?
You can try it. I would give it a shot. Always go. Here's the rule. It's kind of like cooking, and you're adding salt. I can always put a heavier sandpaper on to take more wood away, but I can never put wood back. So once you put salt in soup, the only thing you can do is add more water to dilute it. I can't add more wood to this, so that if I go too deep too quickly, I'm committed to doing the whole piece like that, and then you got to be careful. You're not, unless you're really, really crazy, you are not going to sand through this veneer. That's actually a decent amount of wood. But again, who wants to, I don't want to make the veneer, 1/10 of what its original thickness was, because then I am taking a little bit of strength away from the veneer, and it could, and you may find when you're sanding, there may be a piece of veneer that you didn't realize that is bubbling.
So if you look at this table, you see right here, there's an edge and an edge. How are you going to get that detail?
Oh, am I going to sand that?
How are you going to sand that detail?
Oh, that's I'll probably take this and just go like this.
Oh, okay.
I'm turning it on an angle. This stuff's coming off really easy, so I can go on both sides.
Oh, wow, that's great. Here, I'm going to come over there so they can see that. So what he's doing is he's using the sanding sponge. Here, do it over here so they can see what you're doing.
Okay.
So there we have some details.
So here's a little detail, so I go right inside. I would suggest, if you're doing it by hand, the coarse is okay. You're not going to take too much off. If you're going to be staining it and then putting a clear polyurethane and you want this perfectly shiny surface at the end, which you may want, a really glassy surface. If you're using coarse, you should probably go back when you're finished.
And do fine.
And do 220. Give it.
So finish it with a fine.
Just a simple smooth sanding with 220, and that will take care of it. But so on where I just went over here. So the less weight you put on, that's what keeps the sander kind of floating, and it goes around. I mean, if I push really hard, it'll go. I'll try it. can
Yeah.
hear it. You can hear it, you know.
So if it's not moving smoothly, you have too much pressure on
Yeah, you
it.
can hear it if the motor is slowing down, you're really pushing hard.
Okay.
Just lighten up and let it run
Right.
its own. Just thinking here. If you were going to paint this, you're going to paint this.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be doing this right now.
No.
I would not be doing. So this is because we're going to stain it, and we want to see this wood, and we want it to be nice and even. It's okay that there's this missing piece of veneer that gives it some patina, some really nice kind of craggy look to it.
Character.
But if this was going to be painted, I would TSP this, and pretty much that would probably be the end of it, because
it was already
a
dull.
lot of this will come off if you washed it with TSP. Maybe if I didn't like some of the paint we had on the edges, I might hit that a little bit. But other than that, this is something you'd want to do if you're going to restain the surface. If you want to paint the legs and stain the surface so you get like a really old look to it, and keep the character of this wood, which is really great because you've got this picture frame oak going around the edge, and then you've got this huge piece of veneer with some really great looking grain in the middle. So if you want to save that,
Yeah, look how great this grain looks. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know if you guys can see.
now
wood
now
grain
that I'm,
there.
So now that I'm sanding it, I'm going to show you something that I couldn't see before. So if you look down the line, you see the middle. See this middle piece? Mm-hmm. So here, I couldn't see this before because it was all dirty. So this is an entire piece of veneer here on this side, and another piece of veneer on the other side.
And they're
So-
glued together.
and they're glued together right on top of it. So while it was dirty, I'll be honest, I really didn't look close. I had assumed it was one piece of veneer, but it's not. Now I can see here's the edge right here. So what I will look at as I'm going down, because it's an edge, is to make sure that none of this edge is lifting up. I don't see any of it lifting up, so the center is in pretty great shape. I'm just thinking. So I'm sanding these rings off, right?
Uh-huh.
And as I'm getting through them, I'm saying, look, I still see like here.
The glass rings.
There's a little bit of ring. There's a little edge here, so I can see it now. But if I feel that it's not really, it's taking a long time, it's not a crime to go up a little bit to like the 150. So
Okay.
I could do that. So let me try the.
All right, so you've just switched it
This
to
is the-
150.
this is the one-
So that seemed to go more quickly.
Yeah, so definitely a little quicker. It's not burning into the wood. I would probably, now that I'm showing you this, I would probably do the rest of this with the
150.
150. It's not doing anything. I can actually feel it's a slight bit rougher.
So does that mean that you would, so if you did the rest of this with
I don't
150,
think
would you go over it with the 220?
I'll look at it at the end, but the 150 is pretty. 150 is still pretty smooth.
Oh, it is,
I'm just
okay.
saying you can feel the difference between the two. Yeah.
Now, when you're done sanding it, are you going to clean it with TSP or you don't need to?
I probably won't.
We're going to clean the legs with TSP.
Yeah. I'm going to wash everything underneath of it. I probably won't, and here's why. If I've sanded this all down, and I've gone a little bit into the veneer on the top, why tempt fate and soak water in it and potentially lift up more of the glue, right? So I don't want to lift, because that's what can't happen when you're wiping veneer. I don't want to have to now all of a sudden lift up the veneer. If I wiped it with a TSP cloth, I want to rinse that off in most cases. In some cases there's TSP you don't rinse off. But I'm still now the wood is super porous. I've sanded everything off, so water's going to soak into it even quicker.
Yeah, you don't want that.
And I would prefer not to do that. But I'm taking a decent amount of wood off, so there's no dirt left here. I mean, there's nothing left on this. So.
Okay, that's really helpful. That's very helpful.
And I'm looking at this now, and it looks pretty good. I vibrated away some of it.
All right.
Which was not my plan, but it is what it is.
So Ute says that her legs have a lot of details, like it sounds like they're carved.
Yep.
So Julie said that there's also some sanders that have attachments that might be helpful for her turned legs. What about like a little Dremel with a sanding attachment?
So now you're getting into, okay, so I may change my mind a little bit. So I would ask the question, maybe you don't want to, if they were straight legs, sanding's not a big deal.
She says they have grooves.
If you really want to get that off and you want to clean them and you've got grooves, I would not use a Dremel because a Dremel is hard to control.
Okay.
And a Dremel is going to dig into all kinds of little areas. What I would suggest is probably orange stripper. That's what I would suggest.
Okay.
So for the legs, if you've got a urethane,
like a citrus
stripper. So this is one particular one.
So brand doesn't matter.
Brand doesn't matter, but when you look at it, you know, it says no harsh fumes, removes dried latex and oil-based paints, strips multiple layers. No methylene chloride or NMP, which is kind of a naphtha product. So so read the directions. They're really
How thick
not
of a
bad.
coat do you brush on?
I put just a thick
Gloppy
coat on it. Put a thick gloppy coat on it, and then here's the trick that I've learned, and I forget who told us, but it was a great trick.
Somebody in a workshop years
then,
ago.
Then take saran wrap. And
Clear plastic
clear
wrap.
plastic wrap. If I was doing this whole tabletop, I would probably squirt this all on, and then I would try to brush it in pretty much one direction. You don't want to like brush it all around. It works better if you just brush it once and leave it kind of the way you paint. Just brush it in a line, squirt a little more, brush it on down, get a nice thick pasty layer on, kind of like, not quite like cream cheese on a bagel, not that thick, but really wet. I mean,
a schmear.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, really, really wet. Then take your saran wrap and lay it down over the top and just kind of pat it on to try and, you don't have to get rid of all the air bubbles, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to contact the saran wrap to the citrus. The whole purpose is to keep it from drying because it will dry out. As it starts to absorb into the wood and the paint starts to come off, the citrus loses its
or the stain.
Or it loses its liquid, and so it will start to dry out. And this stuff takes a little longer to work than methylene chloride, but that's okay, it won't kill you. And so if you put the saran wrap on, it will stay moist all night. It'll just stay there. Then tomorrow you come in with a garbage can or a box, pull the saran wrap off, throw it in the garbage, and then just use your spatula and clean it up.
That seems to make a lot more sense
Super
than sanding very detailed areas.
I would not sand detailed areas. So when I look at what I just did here versus this, I'm sanding it down, it's going to be actually pretty good. They're both the same wood. If the border was a different kind of wood, let's say this was oak and this was walnut, and I sanded it down, you see how this is the same color? Same wood. But if these were two different kinds of wood,
let me come over and...
If these were two different kinds of wood, which you will find, so you can see this is going to take stain the same.
Yeah.
It's
so the grain
it's the same,
is different,
it's
but
same,
it's the same
yeah,
wood.
the grain's different, but the color's the same and it's the same wood.
Yeah.
So it will take the stain the same. If it was
Okay.
a different kind of wood, it would probably look different.
All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you at 7:30. If not,
Yep.
we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Take care.
Good night.